Barter, debt, and trust. In the world we live in today, money is almost like an absolute and invisible power. It exists quietly in every moment of our daily lives, guiding our decisions, shaping our relationships, and becoming a reality we often accept without even noticing. Spending even a single day without money is nearly impossible. Yet for the vast majority of human history, people live their lives without even knowing the concept we define as money. In this episode, we will not examine the invention of money itself, but the world that existed before it. And I will try to convey it to you as clearly as I can, because money is not a tool that has existed since the beginning of humanity. On the contrary, it is the result of a long and complex social process. Episode 1. The economy existed before money. One of the most common misconceptions is the belief that the economy began with money. In reality, the economy is the way people produce, share resources, and create mutual obligations. Money is merely a tool within this process. It is not its essence. From hunter-gatherer societies to the first settled agricultural villages, over thousands of years, humans produced, shared, fought, and lived in interdependence. These relationships formed complex economic networks even without money. At this point, an important distinction must be made. The concept of the economy existed independently of money in past societies, but money has no meaning without an economy. Episode 2. Barter and Historical Reality. For a long time, economic history has been explained through an oversimplified narrative. According to this view, people first engaged in barter and later invented money due to the inefficiency of barter. However, modern anthropological and historical research shows that this narrative is largely theoretical and lacks solid empirical foundations. Barter did exist, especially between different communities, particularly among groups that did not know one another. But within the same community, barter was not the primary economic system governing daily life. This is because barter is far too fragile for a society that requires continuity. The needs of both parties must coincide at the same time. Balance must be maintained, and a win-win situation must exist. Although measuring value in theory may seem possible within a community, in real life it is difficult to apply. Goods are not always divisible. And most importantly, barter focuses only on the now. It cannot organize the future. Yet human communities must manage not only the present, but also time itself. Episode 3. Debt, the silent foundation of the economy. Historical evidence shows that debt relationships existed long before money and coinage. However, this debt was not a financial obligation in the modern sense. Rather, it functioned as a social bond. It was more about responding to positive or negative actions. From the earliest settled societies onward, communities knew one another, remembered past behavior, and responded accordingly. Helping someone today meant receiving something in return tomorrow. That return might not come immediately or sometimes not at all. But collective memory sustained these relationships and did not forget what had been done. Here, debt was not a written contract, but a verbal, cultural, and moral obligation. In such societies, the guarantee of debt was not property, money, or coercive force. It was reputation, honor, and dignity. A person who failed to fulfill their debts paid not an economic price, but a social and moral one. This price was often exclusion, loss of trust, and loneliness. However, this process ended with the death of one of the parties because it was not permanent, existing only in memory. Episode 4: From Memory to Record: The Birth of Accounting. As humanity developed, memory-based debt systems began to fall short. As populations grew, relationships became more complex. Questions such as who owes whom, when, and how much increasingly went unanswered over time. These questions led to the emergence of the first record-keeping systems: clay tablets, marks, symbols. These were not money, but they were tools that made economic relationships measurable and enduring. At this point, another critical reality emerged. Money did not originate as a medium of exchange, as it functions in today's global economy, but as a unit of account. In other words, money was not first an object carried by hand. It was a concept that lived in ledgers, records, and measurements. Episode 5: The Rise of States and the Need for Standards. As societies expanded, cities emerged, and as cities grew, political authority strengthened. As a result of these developments, states came into existence. For the state, the economy was not only about social relationships, it was also a matter of taxation, armies, and governance. Because society was no longer made up of small, simple, settled communities, human and state relations had become far more complex. Taxes had to be collected. Armies had to be maintained. Trade had to be regulated. A personal, trust-based debt system was far too unreliable for this. The state needed to establish a standard measure that applied to everyone and symbolize it. This is precisely the point at which money emerged. For this reason, money is not a natural value, a universal truth. As we said at the beginning of this video, it is the result of a social and political process. Money is the state's tool for measuring debt, recording it, and enforcing its collection when necessary. To summarize, money is not the beginning of human or economic history. It is a concept that emerged within a process. The economy existed before money. Debt is the ancestor of money. Trust is the foundation of all economic systems. Money is a symbolic solution that emerged at the point where personal trust was no longer sufficient. Societies grew and became complex, and states came into being. Thank you for watching the video up to this point. In the next episode, we will place this abstract framework into a concrete historical context. We will examine temple economies in Mesopotamia and accounting systems based on barley and silver. In other words, we will see how money first took shape not in people's hands, but in records. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episodes.